Welcome back to Sugar, Spice and Rosé. My name is Erica and I'm going to show you how to make a Tiramisu Tres Leches cake. 4 beautiful sponge cake layers filled with a whipped cream filling and soaked in a rum-infused Espresso Tres Leches. You'll learn the tips to the perfect sponge cake layers, how to practically make a Bailey's cream, and then the dreamiest mascarpone filling. Let's get started with the sponge cake layers. The first step in making the sponge cake is to make the meringue. So the meringue is an egg white and sugar mixture that's whipped together. The end result you want here is a soft peak. Start with your mixer on low and slowly increase the speed. Spooning in 1 tablespoon of sugar at a time, mixing for a few seconds after each addition. You'll see the texture of the egg whites change as you mix it. When it reaches a shiny texture, you know you're getting close. So here you can check for the peaks. Here there aren't any peaks and it's flopping back onto itself, so I'm going to mix it for a bit longer. After mixing it again, I check for the soft peaks, and as you can see, I have a mountain-like shape on the bitters, but the tip of the shape still has a slight curve. The next component of the sponge cake is the sabayon. Even though this is not cooked over a bain-marie, it consists of the same ingredients, the egg yolks and the sugar, and they're whipped to the ribbon stage. To your bowl, add the egg yolks, sugar and vanilla and whip on high for about 4 or 5 minutes or until the mixture is light and airy. Just like the egg whites, this mixture will change color and consistency. The egg yolks will go from being very yellow to a very pale version of its former self. They're just like me when I don't get enough sun. When the mixture is very pale, you can check for the ribbon stage. The ribbon stage is when the bitters are lifted from the mixture and it falls back down in a ribbon, or it can make the figure A and it slowly dissolves back into itself. Next, the milk is added to the sabayon and whisked in. Following that, you're going to sift the flour, baking powder and salt over the mixture. Sifting it makes it much easier to incorporate into that mixture. You're going to fold that flour into it, and folding is a process of taking your spatula and passing it through the center of the cake and bringing the batter that's at the bottom of the bowl to the top. Scraping the sides of the bowl to make sure that all of that flour is mixed in. To the batter, add 1/4 of your meringue. Because the batter and meringue are different consistencies, you need to introduce some of that meringue to help loosen the batter before adding the remaining meringue. Fold the meringue into the batter like you did the flour. After adding the second batch of meringue, mix only until the egg white disappears. You don't want to overmix this mixture because again, you're going to lose all of the air that you would have worked so hard to get. Line 2 8-inch pans with parchment paper. Divide the batter evenly between the 2 pans. Bake in an oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and bake until a toothpick inserted into the center comes out clean, or when you poke the cake, it's springy to the touch. Remove the cakes from the oven and on a cooling rack, lined with parchment paper, cool the cakes upside down. This prevents the cakes from sinking, so they'll stay nice and tall. Run a butter knife or spatula gently around the sides of the cooled cakes to release them from the pans. Mine did not come out at first, so I had to lightly push the cakes away from the sides of the pan. They were hard for me to remove because I left them in the fridge overnight. Remove the piece of parchment from the bottom of the cake and torch the cake. This means that you would level the cake, or in this case, slice it in half from the side. I take my serrated edge knife and make an indent around the perimeter of the cake. After identifying where I want my cut to be, I then apply pressure and I actually cut into the cake, turning it constantly whilst making short cuts. And I cut until I get right through the entire layer. Look at how spongy this cake is. And I even accidentally under-whipped my egg whites, but again, with every other technique that I did, the cake still came out beautiful. For the Espresso Tres Leches cake, so what you're going to do is take some espresso powder or instant coffee powder in this case and dissolve it in the rum. I believe this was easier for me to do. It dissolved really quickly in the rum. Then you're going to combine condensed milk, whole milk, heavy cream, and your coffee and rum mixture and whisk that together. Add your vanilla. Taste it to see if it needs more espresso or more rum. I added a bit more rum. I placed mine in a squeeze bottle to make it easier to use, but this is a fantastic recipe for a homemade Baileys. Now that we have our sponge cake and our tres leches, we need something to fill our cake. So we're going to make our mascarpone whipped cream. To make the mascarpone cream, combine room temperature mascarpone, granulated sugar, and vanilla. Whip it on low. You just want to make sure that mascarpone cheese is softened. Whip some heavy cream until stiff peak and gently fold it into your mascarpone cream. We finally reached the point where we can decorate. Start with a cake board or a cake stand like I have here. Add your first layer of sponge cake. Pour over some of that Tres Leches cake. So add it enough that yes, the cake is saturated but not overly saturated that it will collapse. Add your mascarpone whipped cream. Spread it out evenly over the cake layer and repeat that step for the other 3 layers of the cake. So next cake layer, more of the cake soak, the whipped cream, and then repeat the step until you reach the top of the cake. And the remaining amount of mascarpone cream I added it to the top of the cake and did a nice simple design at the top, and then I sprinkled over some cocoa powder. You can feel free to decorate this cake however you choose. This is your cake. I really hope you get a chance to try it because this was fantastic. The right amount of espresso with that rum, and then the whipped cream was not too sweet because there were other sugary components of the cake. I did not want it to be too sweet, and it was not. Everything was so well balanced. I've made other Tres Leches cakes, but this one really stood out to me because of all the flavor profiles. That Tres Leches cake soak was very delicious, and again, it is a great recipe for a homemade Baileys. So if you do give this recipe a try, please let me know, and I hope you do enjoy it. And if you want to see more Tres Leches cake recipes, please leave a comment down below telling me which flavor you'd like me to experiment with or try as a Tres Leches cake. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you once again for being here. Bye!